Hey gang, Will here from the Ashland Fly Shop, and we're going to talk a little bit about the changing of the season here as we go into the first part of October, changing of the weather. We've had some really great weather systems start to come through, bringing us much cooler days, some rain, some precipitation, which definitely sweetens up the river a bit. And starts to kind of affect our fishing a little bit. So I want to talk a little bit about that and how we start to approach the upper section of the Rogue at this time of year with this sort of change, sort of change in the weather patterns and in the river. So we have our flows are way down; they've dropped way down, and it's quite cool out there. But now with the cooler days and the overcast, the river's really going to stay cool most of the day. You know, it's really hot out, even though we have the cooler flows. It will raise the temp by several degrees during the day. But this time of year, it's really going to stay down, the water temp. And so that's really going to affect the fish. The fish, and with the flows being down, they're also going to start looking at different places to hold in the river. So they start to look for different structure within pools and stuff like that. They're not as apt to move around as they are in higher flows and in warmer water. When their metabolism's higher, they can really move around a lot more in the system. They'll even move up and down the river system. But when we get into this type of a setup, they really will kind of hunker down. So we need to kind of adjust our tactics a bit to find them. This is when we find fish, kind of, down back in the bedrock slots, kind of sitting back in them a little bit, tucked up against a bedrock shelf within a run. And this is when we get more slower takes from our swung flies, or if we're indicator fishing, the indicator will just kind of go down instead of those really aggressive grabs. So, but we're still finding some great fish as they continue to trickle in. We'll still see some hot fish. So we're not going like all the way into winter tactics, but our real kind of fall tactics are our sink tips. If you're swinging flies, we're really into fishing a sink tip for most of the day. You don't have to go all the way into T14 quite yet, but a 10-foot piece of T11 or a 12.5-foot piece of T11, and we like sink tips by either Airflow or Rio in the Mo system. Either one of those are great, and again, in a 10-foot or 12.5-foot piece, that's really going to cover you for pretty much 90% of the fishing that you're going to find, or different strategies that you're going to find in the upper river. There are some situations where you might use T14, but it's probably going to be too heavy for a lot of situations because of the height of the river, at this point being so low. We're also moving into a little bit larger flies. But we're not moving into the biggest flies. We still like those kind of moderate, what we're calling now kind of mini intruder type flies, and that's a stinger hook type fly. It's definitely large enough to be seen. We like the Signature Intruder series from Solitude Flies, just fantastic in the size 6. Our own Hot Hair design, which is a great fly in size 6 and 4. And Aquaflies make some beautiful little mini intruders that I believe are size 6 as well. And those are great. So nice, a darker profile. I like darker flies. I like olives, blacks. I like hothead flies. The Sylvanator tube fly is just a perfect little rabbit strip hothead fly. So those types of flies are really, they're easy to cast, but they're really going to get noticed in there. They're going to make a nice profile. They're going to get right in front of the fish, and they're going to elicit a take. Nymphing, we're pretty much sticking with the same program that we have. If you're running nymphs out there, we really like a larger stonefly, a heavier stonefly, that has a good amount of movement. We like a fly with a little more movement and good legs on it. This fly's got great legs. And this is our own improved Otis bug, and it has we put a nice big hackle in there so that it really kind of breathes and moves as it's being fished. And it's very wiggly, and it's got that hot head, and that gets some attention. And then as a dropper fly from there, we fish that as a 2-fly rig. We'll fish a fly underneath it. You can still use an egg. You can use an egg at any time for steelhead. We're pretty much past spawning salmon now, but it's always a decent idea to use an egg or any type of small drop nymph whether it be Prince Nymph, Copper John. We do like red Copper Johns. You know, several nymphs like that. They'll work great, and we like them in 8s, 10s, and 12s for that. So that's where we're at on the upper road. We're changing strategies, we're changing tactics slightly in our approach to these fish, and we're starting to find them in slightly different places. It's pretty easy to read still, you know, that water's pretty easy to read because it's so low, they can only be in certain spots. So hopefully that helps you a little bit in your strategies for fishing the Upper Rogue River really through the remainder of the season. So thank you for checking it out, and please call if you have any questions. Thank you.